The first episode opens with narration, vaguely explaining the world of RWBY and how there are these creatures called Grimm that nearly kill humans, and this thing called Dust that gave humanity the power to fight back. Oh, and it's also introduced like this.
However, even the smallest spark of hope is enough to ignite change. And in time, man's passion, resourcefulness, and ingenuity led them to the tools that would help even the odds. This power was appropriately named Dust.
Like, why is it appropriately named Dust? Is it because dust in this world, like in real life, is really annoying and inconsistent with how it works? Well, anyways, we're then shown a map of the world of RWBY called Remnant, which, fun fact, Monty created by smearing ketchup on a napkin. I mean, hey, I am a firm believer that inspiration can come from literally anywhere. However, the seemingly informal narration seems to take a more sinister turn.
So you may prepare your guardians. Build your monuments to a so-called free world. But take heed. There will be no victory in strength.
I wonder what that's about. Well, anyways, with that turn, we're introduced proper to the stupid-looking guy from the yellow trailer. Do you think these people are recoiling out of fear? But really, they just don't want to get sick, because these guys walk like they have leprosy.
Oh my god! Do you have any idea how hard it is to find a dust shop open this late?
Please, just take my lien and leave.
Okay, so I would just like to point out how, as the intro established and as the rest of the volume will exposit, dust is this incredibly important and potentially dangerous material, and it's just being sold for relatively cheap in pawn shops. Like, where does this take place? Louisiana? Anyways, where was I? Oh, yeah. So this guy's name is Roman Torchwick, and he's voiced by Gray Haddock. Or as I like to call him, Alex DeSmall. You get it? Because he's like Alex DeLarge from Clockwork Orange. If he was a pussy. His henchmen, though, these guys clearly mean business. I mean, look at them. Their glasses and their ties are completely soaked with the blood of their enemies. Then again, if we're going by clothing color logic, this random girl has the death toll in the thousands, but, I mean, that can't be. Just look at her. Oh, damn! Oh, hey, look at this little groundbreaking effect that goes over Ruby's shoes in a weird way. Also, this background looks like it's from a Borderlands game. Okay, animation nitpicks aside, this episode does act as a pretty solid introduction to the action, both with Ruby's really quick takedown of Roman's goons, and this little fight afterwards with these two mysterious ladies that just appeared. Oh, yeah, these two engage in a brief fight after the robbery scene.
Yeah.
You got over there fast.
Shouldn't she be able to just jump up there and just be like, hey, hello?
Yeah. Oh, she did.
Yeah, see? Why is he giving it to her?
I was gonna shoot it and explode into fire.
Oh.
I think that's how crystals work. They're not really that clear in the first season.
That's weird.
Alright, we got the, Miss Frizzle here.
She just turned the magic school bus into her weapon.
Yeah.
Oh no.
This is how storms work.
Okay, kids, this is how hail works.
And this obscure chick must be really powerful, as she's literally immune to bullets. But yeah, it does a pretty good job of setting up what the show's about. It's got action, it's got magic, it's got guns, it's got really good fight animation at the expense of all other animation. After the fight, Ruby, who's voiced by Lindsay Jones. I don't know where else to put this, so yeah, that's her voice actress. She's voiced by Lindsay Jones. Is then taken into custody by Professor McGonagall here, and we're introduced to this guy, Professor Ozpin, voiced by Shannon McCormick. After showing footage of Ruby's fight with Roman's goons that would have been impossible to record, we get the most character-defining scene in the entire show.
Designed?
Well, one teacher in particular.
I see. It's just
No, I'm serious. It's so character-defining, perfect, and symbolic that going into detail would make this video an hour longer than it already is, so I'm not gonna bother. So anyways, Batwoman explains to Mr. Osborn how she wants to be a Starship Ranger. Ruby Rose explains to Professor Ozpin how she wants to be a huntress, and he agrees to allow her to go to the prestigious academy, Beacon. However, while her sister Yang is excited by the news, Ruby displays some anxiety about moving ahead of high school.
Everyone at Beacon is gonna think you're the bee's knees. Okay, I don't want to be the bee's knees, okay? I don't want to be any kind of knees. I just want to be a normal girl with normal knees.
Interesting side note, Monty actually dropped out of high school himself to pursue animation, so maybe Ruby's feelings here come from his own personal experience of an irregular school experience. I don't know, just food for thought. But yeah, this is a nice little way of giving some depth to Ruby's character, as well as Yang. Afterwards, we're shown this news broadcast with a broadcaster who is clearly not on the same plane of existence as everyone else, alluding to this organization called the White Fang, and these things called faunuses. Oh, and that seems pretty interesting. I wonder... Oh, okay, never mind. Kathleen Zolosh is back.
Hello and welcome to Beacon.
Who's that?
My name is Glinda Goodwitch.
Oh.
Whoa, was that a male character acting a little silly in front of our competent female leads? Don't show Critical Drinker this. And after the episode ends, we're graced with the best part of the episode, the sick-ass first volume opening. It's just so damn cool. The guitars, the drums, Casey's vocals, it really just does such a good job of hyping you up. The lyrics don't really make that much sense, to be honest, especially this line. Yeah, that's kind of weird. Okay, but yeah, jokes aside, this song rules, and the episode it's attached to is pretty good too. It works well as a tone setter, and works enough as an attention-grabbing introduction to the series. 7 out of 10. Though before we move on, I must address the completely blacked out background elephant in the room. This show looks like ass. Okay, so the first volume of RWBY was made on a pretty minuscule budget, even for a web series. And like most of Monty's other works, it was animated using Poser. Now, for what it's worth, while the animation is no doubt pretty rough this first season, compared to other things I've seen made in Poser, this really isn't that bad. Oh, and yeah, I'm certainly not the first person to say that the animation looks best in the fight scenes, but I'd be getting ahead of myself, so next episode. The next episode introduces us to what Beacon actually looks like, and Ruby gets so excited that she bends reality and turns 2D. Also, foreshadowing? Well, anyways, Yang leaves with characters who will never be relevant again, and we're reintroduced to Weiss.
What are you doing? Sorry. Sorry? Do you have any idea of the damage you could have caused?
Oh no, she sounds annoying now. Which is very appropriate. What you're seeing now is pretty much going to be her personality for the entire season in some way. That being... bitch. So, well done, Cara Eberly. You nailed it. I'm carrying a bomb! Be more careful! Oh, and while we're at it, we get more dust exposition.
What are you, brain dead? Dust, fire, water, lightning, energy. Do you have any idea of the damage you could have caused?
Yeah, kid, this material is very dangerous. You can tell it's dangerous by how much I'm shaking it around. Oh, geez, I was joking about the bomb thing. You can tell, though, from this one little interaction that Weiss is someone who's very knowledgeable of magic in this world. I mean, not only does she use it in her fighting and knows a lot about dust and carries it around all the time, but she even knows the classic disappearing luggage carrier trick. And immediately after that, we're reintroduced to Blake. I mean, for being an explosion, she sure seems unscathed. Oh yeah, fun fact, speaking of the explosion, when this episode first premiered at RTX 2013, they apparently couldn't get the explosion effect in time, so they just had this Raptor dubbed Ruby Rex appear on screen, with a little impact font kaboom and VFX missing at the bottom. I can only imagine the confusion at the premiere. That or this is what had everyone sold on the series. Anyways, Blake steps into the argument and exposits a bit about Weiss's background. And this isn't a negative or anything, I just think it's funny. But the way she delivers her lines here reminds me of an Illuminati video.
This same company, infamous for its controversial labor forces and questionable business partners.
And as if we didn't have enough reintroductions this episode, here's Jean Arc. He's voiced by Miles Luna himself.
I'm Jean.
Look, I'm sorry. Vomit Boy was the first thing that came to mind.
Oh, yeah? What if I called you Crater Face?
Hey, that explosion was an accident.
Yeah, and also there wasn't a crater. But yeah, Jean essentially acts like the Sokka of the show, quoting Monty there, that being the lovable idiot who tries to act all cool.
Well, the name's Jean Arc. Short, sweet, rolls off the tongue. Ladies love it.
Do they?
They will. Well, I hope they will.
I just realized his getup is like a hoodie, but he just has armor plating on it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a dork when it comes to weapons. I guess I did go a little overboard in designing it.
Wait, you made that?
Of course. All students at Signal forge their own weapons.
Oh wait, I thought Ozpin said this.
They taught you to use one of the most dangerous weapons ever designed?
Contradiction aside, I do like this little chat between Ruby and Jean. It really gives off that awkward meeting someone new vibe, and it just feels pretty genuine. Anyways, they don't know where they are, and the episode ends with a weirdly out-of-place song about impending doom.
There's a day when our hearts will be broken, when a shadow will cast out the light, and our eyes cry a million tears, help water right.
Which, like, yeah, I know is meant to be foreshadowing to later in the series, but, like, why here? But anyways, this episode's alright. It's short, but it does a decent job of introducing major characters and their personalities in a natural and diegetic way. 7 out of 10. I will also say one other thing regarding the first volume. A lot of these episodes are short as hell. Like, this episode was 6 minutes, but some of them are like 4 to 5 minutes. As for some reason, these shorter episodes are just 2 parts of a longer episode, which just begs the question, why don't you just combine the 2 shorter episodes together into one long episode? The next episode opens with Ruby and Jean finding the meeting area. I wonder where Yang is. And we then see the only background character who has any details. I guess that's where the budget went. Ruby then briefly explains to Yang what happened in the last episode, but Weiss then appears behind Ruby and starts berating her again. Personally, I think this bit would have been funnier if we didn't see Weiss slowly approaching behind Ruby while she's talking about her, and she just appears out of thin air, like a Weiss jump scare. But anyway, so Ozpin then shows up and gives a little speech, where he and Glinda somehow grow larger than everyone else. After making this speech, Yang and Ruby make this observation.
He seemed kind of off. It's almost like he wasn't even there.
Which could be a little reference to how Ozpin's character is based off Oz from the Wizard of Oz book / movie, who was also not actually there. And much like Oz, he also casually just insults people.
But I look amongst you, and all I see is wasted energy.
You clinking, clanking, clattering collection of colliginous junk!
The next scene has the characters sleeping in a ballroom. Ruby is still having doubts about making friends at Beacon, and we immediately see Blake reading a copy of The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Yang tries to strike up a conversation between the two. That doesn't really go well when Yang tries to intervene, but Ruby and Blake then bond over their shared love of books.
Yeah, this girl's a lost cause. What's it about? Huh? Your book. Does it have a name?
Well, it's about a man with 2 souls, each fighting for control over his body.
The Golden Freddy reference!
I was gonna say that's a weirdly long name for a book. This is a pretty good way of building on all 3 characters and characterizing Blake as someone beyond just the apathetic one.
I really wish I weren't here right now.
But then Weiss comes in and ruins everything.
Yeah, what's your problem with my sister? She's only trying to be nice. She's a hazard to my health.
Aren't you a hazard to everybody's health?
Yeah, exactly. She's a hazard to my ears. The ending song for this episode is the song Gold, which is just about how Yang really appreciates and wants to protect Ruby, which I guess fits a little better here. Still not like an amazing choice or anything, but okay. In short, this is another decent episode that doesn't really do much other than establish traits to characters, but it does a pretty good job at it, so 7 out of 10. Yeah, I'll just say expect to see a lot of these types of episodes.
Wake up, lazy bud!
This episode opens with 2 entirely new characters, Nora Valkyrie, voiced by Samantha Ireland, and Lai Ren, voiced by Monty Oum himself. Fun fact, he's actually voiced by the creator of the show, Monty Oum.
Oh. It was like a self-censored, or...?
I don't know, maybe. Ruby's still hung up on not wanting to interact with people, as much as Yang tries to get her to break out of her shell. But their conversation is immediately cut short by Jean just walking by them, I guess.
What the? I don't need to break out of my shell. That's absolutely ridiculous.
And then we're introduced properly to this girl, Pyrrha Nikos, voiced by Jen Brown. Hey, wait a minute, that's the background character from before! Weiss chats it up with her in an attempt to gain her favor for teammate selection, along with a very poorly delivered inner monologue.
This will be perfect. The smartest girl in class combined with the strongest girl in class. Together we will be unstoppable.
Like, she says that like a robot.
She seemed like so quiet in her trailer.
Yeah, that's the irony, yeah. Anyways, Jean interrupts again in an attempt to smooth talk.
So, Weiss, couldn't help but overhear your fondness of me the other day.
Also, Jean only seems to know Pierre from cereal box, but only when Weiss points it out. I don't know how he wouldn't have noticed it immediately, as seeing as these are the only clothes she seems to wear. Then Jean gives some casting couch talk to Weiss.
Sounds like Pierre's on board for Team Jean. Spots are filling up quick. Now, I'm not supposed to do this, but maybe I could pull some strings, find a place for you. What do you say?
You know, I'm sure I could get you a part in Toy Story 3.
And in response, Pierre fucking kills him.
In the arms of the...
Christ. Does he have 2 belts on, by the way?
Wait, what?
He has 2 belts on.
Oh my gosh, right? Anywho, we then cut to this cliff where everybody's situated in preparation for a team-forming mission. Also, Ozpin says this.
These teammates will be with you for the rest of your time here at Beacon. So it is in your best interest to be paired with someone with whom you can work well. The first person you make eye contact with after landing will be your partner for the next 4 years.
Okay, well, the contradiction is pretty obvious, but, like, what if the first person they make eye contact with is someone who isn't involved with Beacon? Like, a random hobo or something. Also, Pierre established earlier that there's 4 people on each team.
Actually, I think the teams are comprised of 4 students each.
So, what's the point of this first person you make eye contact with will be your only teammate bullcrap? Either Ozpin's trolling, or he has really not thought this through.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, sir?
Good. Now, take your positions.
Okay, yeah, he's definitely trolling.
Sir, I've got a question.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares, plus you're white, plus R, plus L, plus ratio.
See? I told you.
After you
Told him what? Yeah, I don't really have much to say on this episode. Nothing really happens in it, and it's pretty much just the build-up to the arc that we're gonna be talking about next. I do think the title of the episode referencing Ozpin's speech from the previous episode is neat.
It is up to you to take the first step.
Blake shows up in the credits even though she doesn't appear at all in the episode. Like, they couldn't even bother putting her in this little starting area. I don't know, 6 out of 10.
Hey, how are any of these people supposed to struggle whatsoever?
Well, it's not about the physical struggle, it's about the emotional struggle. This is another episode where not much actually happens. It starts with the characters landing in the Emerald Forest. Pierre somehow doesn't kill Jean pulling this off.
Watch, he just misses her aim and kills him or something.
Why are you apologizing? You saved his life. And Ruby tries to search for anyone other than Weiss, but then, whoa! Weiss shows up and they make eye contact! Now that means they're partners now! Yeah, I think this could have been done in a more creative way. Like, I think it would have been a pretty fun idea if Weiss tried to not look at Ruby, but she adamantly tries to make eye contact with her to be partners and by proxy friends with her, and this comes into contact with them fighting off Grimm, but ultimately results in them making eye contact. Or hey, maybe have Ruby and Weiss go different ways after nearly making eye contact, but through a bunch of shenanigans, they keep meeting back up with each other and nearly make eye contact each time before finally accepting it when they realize that they actually make a good team together. I don't know, anything would have been more creative than, yeah, they make eye contact and proceeding to do the most predictable stuff you can with that in mind. I will say I like the little mirror motif that plays when Weiss shows up. Pierre and Jean's interaction is also kind of cute, I guess.
Who's gonna get me down from here? Jean? Do you have any spots left on your team? Very fine.
God, he's so useless. It's so hot.
It's so funny. Also, they could get this guy like a mechanical shield that just sprouts out, but they could have given him rocket boots.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, he said it was a hand-me-down, so yeah.
Oh. Well, wouldn't his Gramps have rocket boots or something?
Yeah. I guess they're just old and don't work.
Yeah. Back in my day, we didn't use rocket boots. We just had superpowers.
Yeah. Till the liberals took our powers away. Oh, and I also like this little thought bubble animation that's done by the same guy who does Rooster Teeth animated adventures. That's nice. Cutting back to Ruby, she tries to convince Weiss that she's actually cool and then immediately runs away. Then Weiss says this line that perfectly sums up the entire volume.
You may be fast, but you still excel at wasting time.
But then, suddenly, a Grimm comes out of the bush, looking a little different from the red trailer, and sounding different too. We've upgraded from DS sounding Grim to 3DS sounding Grim. Wow! But yeah, that's just where the episode ends. I don't know, what do you want me to say here? There's nothing really to this episode. It doesn't really establish anything new or interesting, and it kind of just squanders golden opportunities for more interesting storytelling. 5 out of 10. The episode begins with Yang fighting off 2 bear-like Grim, much like how she briefly fought a guy in a bear mask in the yellow trailer. She also gets super pissed when she loses a strand of her hair, also like she did in the yellow trailer. Noticeably, Yang is only fighting 2 bears, which makes me believe, since she's based off Goldilocks and there are 3 bears in the original story, the third one will come back for revenge in a later volume.
Oh no, her eyes are red. How about you? Doesn't she realize that humans naturally shed hair?
I don't know, she's she's like combing her hair and her hair falls out in the sink and she just beats up the sink. She beats up the hairbrush.
Or the mirror.
Anyways, after Blake finishes off the second bear, we cut back to Weiss. And I like this little moment here where she strategically evaluates the best combat strategy to face the Grim, only for RWBY to come in and completely throw her off. I also like this little moment here when RWBY cuts down this tree after a tiff she and Weiss have, and this black feather comes down from the sky, and at first glance it just looks like a normal-sized feather up close to the camera, but then it lies down on the downed tree and you see that it's actually massive. It's a cool little perspective trick, I like it. Anyways, we cut back to Jean and Pyrrha, and Jean, as well as the audience, are told by Pyrrha about this thing called Aura. While she's explaining this, Lai Ren is battling this giant snake Grim. The most that's explained regarding Aura here is that it acts like a force field, I guess.
It's like a force field!
Yes, exactly, Jean. And also like an enhanced reaction time, kind of like spider sense, pretty much. After this vague and brief explanation, Pyrrha unlocks Jean's Aura.
Now, close your eyes and concentrate. Okay.
Damn, what? You got some weird fetishes.
Alright. I used my aura to unlock yours, but...
They did semicolon right in the Roblox chat.
And then we get the best moment in the whole episode.
I still don't think that's what a sloth sounds like.
Nora's best girl, and if you say otherwise, you're lying to yourself. Anyways, this is an alright episode. The introduction of Aura feels a little sudden, and the actual explanation Pyrrha gives is a little vague, but it works at introducing a concept well enough. Plus, the action is pretty good in this episode too, I guess. 7 out of 10.
Oh no, there goes the pop-ups. Alright, fellas. Oh, put this in the video. No, guys, whatever you do, don't try to download Pokemon Whack. Cause I done got a virus trying to download that. So like, yeah, don't do it. Like, random pop-ups show up. Look, I know it looks stupid, and you want to give it a try, but don't. I don't know, maybe it's just where I downloaded it from, because I couldn't find it anywhere else.
Okay, I really don't think RWBY knows how cameras work. Anyways, RWBY and Weiss keep arguing, and it's very clear that they are not good teammates at the moment.
Stop treating me like a kid! Stop acting like a kid! Well, stop acting like you're perfect! I'm not perfect! Not yet.
Character development.
But when I get all the Chaos Emeralds, then I... Meanwhile, Blake and Yang come across the Forest Temple with the relics Ozpin told the students about. Man, these two sure have barely appeared or interacted in this arc. I ship them. Like, come on, not even gonna mention how Yang previously called this girl a lost cause to her face. Nope, they're just good. Oh, okay.
Oh, there is a forest temple. The irony.
Think this is it?
It's more like a forest shrine than a temple.
True. It's like this one structure I saw in the Twilight Forest mod in Minecraft. Guys, where's the questing ram? Did you guys get all 16 colors of the wool?
Meanwhile, Jean and Pyrrha walk into a totally non-suspicious cave.
Think this is it?
I don't know, Jean, does that look like a temple?
I'm not sure. Yeah, there's no monkeys coming out of it. Or where are those things from Temple Run were?
Yeah.
Or there was like a Wendigo. Good going, silly.
Do you feel that? Soul-crushing regret? No, it's warm.
Gaius.
Pyrrha, did you shit yourself? Then Jean finds the relic that actually turns out to be the stinger of a giant scorpion Grim.
Oh no, it's a monster. Isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, I think we'll see. I don't think it's a monster. Oh no, it's a monster.
Ooh, it's an Algator. I love it.
Blake, did you hear that?
It's a Oh, it's a scorpion.
Yeah.
That still looks cool though.
Yeah.
So that whole anglerfish dynamic was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Also, where's your powers? You did the cool glowy thing.
Yeah. Why didn't you use your aura to sense that it was a monster?
Yeah, you should have used Aura Sphere, dummy. And he's probably gonna die now.
Pyrrha, use your sword. Use your spear technique.
It's a bug type, I think. So you use a fire type move.
What should we do?
Well, that was abrupt as hell. Yet another pretty nothing episode. It doesn't really do anything that wrong, but there's nothing really else to say here. 6 out of 10. This episode starts with Ruby and Weiss somehow on a giant bird grim, and all the characters come together at the same time.
Game. Damn, he for real used the Princess Peach side beam.
Did your sister just fall from the sky? Did that girl just ride in on an Ursa? Did she just run all the way here with a Deathstalker on her tail?
Blake, quit pointing at the obvious. That's my job. Hey, check out this chest piece that fades through Nora's arm.
Oh no, her hair fell out, I guess. So you know how, like, what do you call it? You know how, like, chemotherapy makes your hair fall out?
Yeah.
Imagine how pissed off she would be if she got chemotherapy.
We have a challenge.
Rooster Teeth, in Volume 10.
Create a storyline in which
Yang
gets breast cancer. Imagine the drama of a vulnerable
Yang Jialong
still persisting in her worldly adventures despite her illness.
Hey, you guys think we should, like, go and help Pyrrha out or something? Like, I think she... Oh my god, a bird! Anyways, Ruby charges directly at the scorpion, and that doesn't exactly go well, but she's saved at the last minute by Weiss, who just suddenly acts more reasonable.
And I suppose I can be a bit difficult, but if we're going to do this, we're going to have to do this together. So if you quit trying to show off, I'll be nicer.
Like, where did this change of heart come from?
Okay, just use ice on that. It's a flying type.
Whatever, the gang then decides that there's no reason to fight the creatures and to run with the artifacts. Why? The scorpion one at least is pinned down. Just chop it in the head or something and get it over with. It's almost like the writers needed an excuse to have the two teams fight two monsters, even though they easily could have found a more sensible workaround. Like, why not just have Pyrrha show up without the scorpion following her, but then it's revealed to show up at this temple area they fight the bird at? This kind of just makes our teams look really incompetent. And they end up fighting the giant bird anyways, so... Whatever, the 8 characters then engage in an admittedly pretty cool fight scene with the Grimm, and this scene pretty much served as the first real fight scene in the show.
Oh. Is it just me, or is she kind of like Amy Rose, and I feel like that's...
She is very much like Amy Rose.
She even has the hammer.
There are certainly some leaps in logic during the fight, like this bit where the bird rams into this bridge the characters are running on, and as you can see by the positioning, Jean, Nora, Pyrrha, and Lai should have been thrown forward, but no, this just knocks Jean and Nora to one side of the bridge, and Pyrrha and Lai to the other side. Also, Jean, who's done almost nothing competent this whole arc, suddenly acts all leaderly near the end. Plus, the finishing blow Ruby pulls off where Weiss uses her glyphs as a way for her to run up the cliff wasn't exactly a well-established power, unless she used it in this scene, which would have actually made more sense. But for what it's worth, it's still a kind of cool fight scene that almost makes the arc worth it. Afterwards, Ozpin then gives the teams their names and leaders. John Arc, Nora Valkyrie, Pyrrha Nikos, and Lai Ren make up Team Juniper, led by John. Don't ask why they use Lai's last name, other than it sounds cooler. I have no idea. Oh, and Ozpin also does the same thing for this group that came before them, called Team Cardinal, who seems to be made up of Biff Tannen, the love child of Voth Montenegro and Jacksepticeye, Severus Snape, and this guy who can't even be bothered to open his eyes for the ceremony. Maybe he's related to the shopkeeper from the first episode. But yeah, that last guy in the group is named Sky Lark. Like, why not just have his first name begin with an L? Like, I don't get it. Well, anyway, Ruby Rose, Weiss Schnee, Blake Belladonna, and Yang Xiaolong form the team RWBY. Oh my god, that's like the name of the show! And they're led by Ruby. What a surprise. Anyways, cut to... Oh hey, it's Torchwick. Haven't seen him in a while. He appears to be planning something. Ooh, can't wait to wait another 8 episodes to see that in action. So yeah, overall, this is not a great episode. It has a cool fight scene at the end, but it suffers from some pacing issues starting out. The Weiss deciding to act nice, and Jean, and even RWBY to an extent, deciding to act like leaders both feel very sudden and out of the blue. And some of the choices made by the characters just don't make much sense. 5 out of 10. This episode marks the first actual interaction between Team RWBY, where they create the most hazardous-looking bunk beds imaginable. I like that she still has the brochure from the third episode.
Yeah.
Alright! Weiss, Blake, Yang, and their fearless leader RWBY have begun their first mission. Bonsai! Bonsai!
Explode! Meanwhile, Team Juniper's like, yeah, we've been on our first mission! Allahu Akbar! And apparently Weiss didn't exactly remember her little promise from earlier.
At 9, we've got to be.
What? Did you say 9 o'clock? It's 8:55, you dunce!
Afterwards, they go to the class of Professor Port, the best mustached school faculty member, played by a pedophile since Ferris Bueller. I will bring up now that I love how the Grimm, in keeping with RWBY's other naming conventions, are named after classical literature or mythology concepts. Like, the Wolf Grimm is called a Beowulf, the Bird Grimm is called the Nevermore, based on the Edgar Allan Poe poem The Raven, that's pretty cute. The giant black and white snake monster is called a King Tajitu, based off the yin-yang concept in Taoism, that's a neat deep cut. And this one I really appreciate. There's this pig Grimm that's called Borbatusk, named after the famous Jonathan Swift satirical novella of the same name. Oh, what, you never read Borbatusk in your high school English class? Man, your school must have been boring. Next thing you'll tell me, you've never read the iconic Charles Dickens novel, Deathstalker. Anyways, Port drones on while RWBY recreates that one SpongeBob joke, among other things, to Weiss's annoyance. And when Professor Port asks who best exemplifies true huntsman qualities, Weiss immediately claims that she does, to which Port then motions her to fight this very intimidating cage that appeared out of nowhere. Now, I know what I said earlier about Weiss suddenly acting all bitchy again, but I do like the idea that Weiss expresses jealousy about not being picked as the leader of Team RWBY when she believes that she's the most qualified. And this, thankfully, will be explored more in the next episode, so let's move on to that. 6 out of 10. Alright, really quick before we move on to the next episode, I just want to point out this little comment I found on the YouTube upload of this video.
So, who among you...
Among you? Ring any bells? Dude, it's like Among Us. Holy shit, you're right. You're so smart and handsome. See, it's funny because holy shit, is that the real Diesel? Oh wait, shit, there was a monster in that cage? Anyways, Weiss engages in battle with the Borbatusk, all the while Team RWBY cheers her on. Oh yeah, let's not ignore the fact that this dude let a dangerous Grimm monster loose in the school. Like, dude, what if it kills someone not involved in the fight? Or more importantly, what if it damages these sleek-looking lecture hall stands? Like, bro, that looks like an imported Italian maple. That shit's expensive. Anyways, RWBY offers some advice and Weiss snaps back.
Weiss, go for its belly. There's no armor underneath.
Shut up, you stupid bitch!
Oh, and speaking of Sonic, the Borbatusk then does this. Bad move as Weiss immediately defeats it. What happens next is actually a pretty good scene that further explores both RWBY and Weiss's characters. RWBY brings up what Weiss said in the forest about being a team, but she rebuttals with,
Not a team led by you. I've studied and trained, and quite frankly, I deserve better. Ozpin made a mistake.
Ozpin then teleports, I guess, behind RWBY to talk to her, while Weiss goes to Professor Port to talk to him about how she should have been the leader.
Professor Port!
Ah, Miss Shani. And to what do I owe this fine pleasure?
He has the Porky cut
I enjoyed your
from her
lecture.
mouth.
Oh yeah, he does.
I've believed in Professor Osmond for many years, and the man's never once led me astray.
So you would just blindly accept his decision, even after seeing how exceptional I am?
With all due respect,
I mean, his eyes are always closed, so like I'm pretty sure he's blindly following somebody regardless.
Now, going back to Weiss's statement, I don't think Weiss actually meant what she said here. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said this in episode 8.
I'm not trying to show off. I want you to know I can do this.
You're fine.
It's clear that she's just actively jealous of RWBY for getting a role that she felt she earned, because for her entire life, she has been getting what she wanted.
I see a girl before me who has spent her entire life getting exactly what she wanted.
That's not even remotely true. Well, not entirely true.
She can't fathom the idea of someone working differently to her because to her, the only right way is her way. This has ultimately resulted in her acting cold and harsh towards others who try to help her because she interprets this as being talked down to, as well as not trying to get to know others. Not becoming a team leader must have been devastating for her because it was something she possibly trained for her whole life. However, focusing on that will not allow things to get better. What matters now is that she is the one who has to learn to be the better teammate, by being not the best leader, but the best person she can be. After Professor Port tells her this, she, later that night, notices that Ruby has fallen asleep studying. And it's here that Weiss finally makes an attempt to know Ruby, both by realizing that she does know her stuff and how she takes her coffee. She then promises to be a good teammate, immediately proving her point,
That's wrong, by the way.
and says how she's always wanted bunk beds as a kid, which could also be interpreted as, while she thought all she cared about was being the very best fighter, she always wanted to be the very best friend. So yeah, honestly, this is the best episode of the volume so far. It's really simple and short, but very effective. And needless to say, but this serves as a way better place for Weiss to start acting like a better person than at a random point in the last arc. 8 out of 10.
I was studying and then I fell asleep. I'm sorry.
Oh, she's choking her.
How do you take your coffee?
Oh, so she's taking the leadership role by force.
Something's troubling you.
Yes, sir.
Dear girl, confess to me your strife.
Don't you have somewhere to be? Oh, don't worry, I'll just tell my friends my Uber didn't pick me up. Okay, enough with the Ryan Haywood jokes. It's too easy. I know I am leagues better than that. This episode starts with Jean in a battle with Biff Tannen, who's actually named Carden Winchester, voiced by Adam Ellis. Jean loses, and we're also shown that aura energy can be gauged on a tablet, I guess. We then cut to the gang at lunch, where Lai Ren holds his mug like a frickin' alien. Pierre and Ruby start expressing concern over Carden's bullying of Jean, which we get some flashbacks to, like this one, where Carden does the pussiest little slap on this book that Jean's carrying and walks away doing the Dwayne Wade pose. Oh, and also Carden's gang is kind of racist because they begin picking on this rabbit girl Faunus.
Please stop.
Wow, this does take place in Louisiana. And also, this is our technical introduction to how faunuses, or people with animal-like appendages in this world, are the marginalized underclass beyond the brief mention in the first episode. And that's just kind of how the episode ends. Yeah, nothing really to say about this episode. It kind of adds a little new information while also not doing much. 6 out of 10. This episode starts with Rick Sanchez, Bartholomew Oobleck, voiced by Joel Heyman, asking if any fauna students have been discriminated against in the school. When the rabbit girl from earlier raises her hand, he literally just goes,
"Oh no!" Anyway.
Many faunas are known to have nearly perfect sight in the dark. General Goop was inexperienced and made the mistake of trying to ambush the faunas in their sleep. His massive army was outmatched and the general was captured. Perhaps if he'd paid attention in class, he wouldn't have been remembered as such a failure.
Mr. Winchester, please.
"You're insulting my heritage." Anyways, so Jean isn't really putting that much effort into schoolwork, so Pierre offers to help him. Wow, is that a joke alluding to suicide? Don't show Phantom Strider this. It's here, though, that Jean reveals that he faked his transcripts to get accepted into Beacon because he wanted to be a hero like his ancestors, but for some reason he refuses Pierre's help.
I don't want help. I don't want to be the damsel in distress. I want to be the hero.
John.
I wasn't really accepted into Beacon.
I was paid off.
What do you mean?
My parents are rich.
I mean, I didn't go to combat school.
My mom gave the principal a blowjob.
So essentially, Jean wants to be a strong warrior, but doesn't seem to want to put forth any effort into becoming one, and refuses help when offered to him. Okay. Now, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I spot several big mistakes. But there are ways, however, this dilemma could have made a little more sense. First of all, why does he refuse help if he knows he can't do it on his own? He says this.
Because this is what I've always wanted to be. My father, my grandfather, and his father before him were all warriors. They were all heroes. I wanted to be one too. I was just never good enough.
Then let me help you.
I don't want help. I don't want to be the damsel in distress. I want to be the hero.
But why? Now, if he said something like, "Oh, my ancestors didn't need help," or something along the lines of implying that he thinks that having help is some form of weakness, then I could at least see where he's coming from. If anything, that would make for a pretty compelling character arc where he realizes that having help doesn't make you weaker, almost mirroring to an extent Weiss's character arc. See what I did there? But nope, this more so just comes across as Jean acting really arrogant. Which, could also make for a good character arc where he realizes that method of thinking is wrong and only leads to more trouble. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that pans out. Now, well, at least Miles' performance here is good, and I do appreciate the attempt to flesh out a seemingly one-note character so early. Anyways, Cardin overhears the whole thing, and coincidentally, and acts all sinister, and the episode ends. Overall, it's a fine episode. This more so just hinges on introducing an arc that hopefully will be good. I guess we'll have to see about that. 6 out of 10. The episode begins with Ruby and Jean having a little conversation.
Hey, Jean. Long time no see. Did you lock yourself out again?
We have the same classes together.
And the conversation doesn't really make that much sense.
I'm starting to think coming to this school was a bad idea. I'm a failure.
Nope.
Nope?
Nope. You're a leader now, Jean. You're not allowed to be a failure.
But what if I'm a failure at being a leader?
Nope.
You sure about that, Ruby? I mean, I could name a couple failed leaders. But anyways, afterwards, Ruby goes to bed, and Cardin then calls up Jean asking for...
I'm gonna need you to go out and get me a bag of rapier wasps.
What wasps? Anyways, we cut to the next day, and the students are at the Forever Fall Forest, which may or may not be the same forest from the Black trailer. And it's so pretty that Nora starts hovering. Glinda tells them to collect tree sap for a teacher we never see, and also says this.
And I'm here to make sure that none of you die while doing so.
Yeah, remember that for later. So Cardin pulls Jean aside to collect sap and unveil his master plan.
They're drinking off the trees.
Cardin, what's going on?
Oh god. It's the one tree from the videos.
What is this, girl?
Okay, I can't unsee that now. Great.
Cardin, what's going on?
Payback. Jean, you idiot. You were supposed to bring a bag of rapier wasps, not a box. So Cardin wants Jean to throw sap they collected at Pyrrha and unleash the rapier wasps onto her, but Jean refuses and throws it at Cardin, and that's kind of just where the episode ends. This episode is another kind of nothing one. I do kind of like how Jean rebels against Cardin at the end, but nothing really else happens. This episode really doesn't stick out that much. 6 out of 10.
You've done it now.
Use Aura Sphere.
Oh yeah, fun fact while we're on it. Did you know that Cardin Winchester is actually named after Henry Beaufort, one of the key persecutors on the trial of Joan of Arc, and was a cardinal and bishop of Winchester? I don't know, this is neat. The episode opens with Jean having the tar beaten out of him, but when Cardin tries to punch him, he reenacts that one SpongeBob meme.
He used the light screen.
Yeah, the light screen, yeah. But then Cardin says this.
Let's see how much of a man you really are.
When suddenly a large Ursa appears and his teammates pussy out. The others farther in the forest hear the commotion, and Pyrrha and Ruby tell the others to retreat, essentially. Okay, what? Okay, first of all, where exactly is Glinda?
And I'm here to make sure that none of you die while doing so.
And secondly, why don't you all just tag along to defeat the Ursa? It'd be much easier. But whatever, Cardin's about to get slashed, and then Jean comes in to protect him.
Use Behemoth Bash.
And is seemingly able to fight the Ursa almost perfectly. When his aura energy gets low, he doesn't even seem to move to a defensive strategy like Glinda told him.
Gauging your aura will help you to decide when it is appropriate to attack, or when it is better to move to a more defensive strategy.
Meaning he wasn't paying attention and is somehow the most competent he's ever been in combat. Yeah, so much for that potential arc where realizing that not trying doesn't get you anywhere. Also, the opening theme plays here for some reason. I don't know why.
Use Aura Sphere.
But then, as Jean's about to land the final blow, Pyrrha notices his shield isn't properly raised, so she uses the Force to lift it up slightly to block the Ursa's claw. And when Ruby and Weiss question this, Pyrrha says this.
Well, Ruby has her speed. You have your glyphs. My semblance is polarity.
Now you may be wondering, what's a semblance? This is literally the first time that they're bringing this concept up.
That's a good question.
Oh yeah, also Pyrrha mentions how Ruby's special power is speed, but like, everyone in this show is fast, so anyways, Pyrrha opts to keep the fact that she saved Jean's life essentially to herself, and Jean tells Cardin to piss off. But then, when they're back at Beacon, Jean apologizes to Pyrrha about refusing her help, but I'm sorry, none of this feels earned. None of what happened with Cardin this arc related to the issue of Jean wanting to be a warrior, but also not wanting help or wanting to try. He was just blackmailed into nearly doing something because he confessed about lying about being accepted into Beacon when Cardin happened to be listening. And when the moment danger breaks out, despite having next to no real fighting experience, not even putting into practice what Glinda told him, he's able to defeat the Ursa almost perfectly by himself with only Pyrrha's help, which he wasn't even aware of. But despite this, he still seems to want training from Pyrrha and apologizes. You see how this just doesn't add up? Yeah, this episode kind of sucks. It throws away any potential for the arc or any potential purpose for the arc, and introduces an entirely new magic concept out of nowhere and frames it as if we're already supposed to know what it is. 4 out of 10. Oh, before I move on to the next episode, after this episode ends, it plugs promotion for the Blu-ray release of Volume 1, and Crunchyroll called it lovely to look at. I mean, knowing they said that about a show that looks like this currently, it makes perfect sense why they'd eventually greenlight a show like X-Arm.
It's Christmas! Or is it? Oh,
No, it's not Christmas. Religion, Christianity doesn't exist in this world, man.
She has a cross on her.
Execution methods still exist in this world, I think. Yeah.
So she's just being edgy.
Yeah, she's just being edgy.
No, what are you talking about? Jesus was definitely existed. He was just a super powerful wizard.
Yeah.
He was so powerful that he gave the Grim Reaper the middle finger. It was like, hey guys, I'm back.
Yeah. No, he didn't perform miracles, he just used dust.
Yeah. No, he had that dust in his veins.
Yeah.
No,
he just shot it up in his face like heroin. I think, why can't they just do that? Is that like...
Yeah.
You know, can dust be considered drugs in the RWBY world? I'll have to think about that.
Just like snort it.
Yeah, snort it. Or like shoot it up. It's almost time for the Vital Festival, and Weiss is really excited to kick some ass. However, the gang notice that a store has been robbed, presumably by the White Fang. Yeah, you remember those guys from the first episode? Weiss makes... comments.
That still doesn't change the fact that the White Fang are a bunch of scum. Those Faunus only know how to lie, cheat, and steal.
But we're suddenly introduced to this guy, Sun Wukong, voiced by Michael Jones.
Hey, a no-good stowaway would have been caught. I'm a great stowaway.
Get down from there this instant.
I mean, I could understand why these guys would be racist towards them. They get tails and we don't. That's not fair. And when he runs away, Weiss literally shouts,
Quick, we have to observe him!
And it was at this point I realized how hilarious the run animations look when slowed down. But before the gang could observe him, we're then introduced to this girl, Penny, voiced by Taylor McNee.
Weiss.
Ginger.
They don't have souls.
It's a pleasure to meet you. You already said that.
He's a robot.
Who immediately latches onto Ruby because of a throwaway line.
Take care, friend. You call me friend. Am I really your friend? Yeah, sure. Why not?
I like this little callback to the third episode.
We can paint our nails and try on clothes and talk about cute boys. Yeah, and we can paint our nails and try on clothes and talk about cute boys, like tall, blonde, and scraggly over there.
Penny says that she's here for the tournament, and then Weiss asks her about Sun, which, firstly, when did she have time to sketch that? And secondly, how do you know that that guy is even competing in the tournament? Blake and Weiss then get into an argument over Weiss acting too based.
Why do you keep saying that? Huh? Stop calling him a rapscallion. Stop
He is.
I mean, yeah.
calling him a degenerate. He's a person. Oh,
No, he's a furry.
Stop calling him out for his crimes. He's so hot though.
Yeah.
You ignorant little brat!
Let me simp for criminals in peace.
Dare you talk to me like that? I am your teammate.
You are a judgmental little girl.
What in the world makes you say that?
And this leads into a pretty good moment where Weiss explains the reasoning for her prejudice.
You want to know why I despise the white thing? Why?
Because the white fang killed my grandma.
Okay.
Don't particularly trust the Faunus? It's because they've been at war with my family for years.
Knew it.
War as an actual bloodshed.
Once upon a time, there was
Back for as long as I can remember. And ever since I was a child,
I've become racist.
I quickly became racist. Hating on Faunus became part of my lifestyle.
Dust stolen. And every day, my father would come home furious. And that made for a very difficult childhood.
I mean, I'm sure he was just drunk.
Yeah.
No!
She says this at one point,
An entire train car full of dust stolen.
which may be alluding to the events of the Black trailer. Did you remember that detail I told you about? Of course you didn't. You disgust me. Oh, and this scene also introduces the fact that she has daddy issues. And this leads to Blake indirectly admitting that she was once part of the White Fang. Man, this is pretty rough. I wonder what Yang thinks of it. She really hasn't done much. Anyways, Blake runs up to the statue and reveals that she's a furry! Anyways, cut to a few days later, and I guess Team RWBY only seems to be concerned about finding Blake now, and not, like, immediately after she ran into the night. And Blake offers to tell Sun Wukong about her backstory. This is a pretty good episode. It does kind of introduce these characters who won't really be that relevant to the arc until the end, but they're fun with the limited screen time they have, and the dramatic moments in this episode are pretty well handled. 8 out of 10. The episode begins with Blake explaining her backstory, and by proxy, the backstory of the White Fang. Now, this is some pretty interesting exposition, and I also like the rendition of From Shadows that plays during the scene. But I did notice a potential plot hole. So, Blake says that the White Fang started committing crimes about 5 years ago.
Then, 5 years ago, our leader stepped down, and a new one took his place. A new leader with a new way of thinking. Suddenly, our peaceful protests were being replaced with organized attacks. We were setting fire to shops that refused to serve us, hijacking cargo from companies that used Faunus labor.
Even though Weiss implies that the White Fang was like this ever since she was a child.
And ever since I was a child, I've watched family friends disappear. Board members executed. An entire train car full of dust stolen. And every day, my father would come home furious. And that made for a very difficult childhood.
Well, whatever. Blake then explains that she left the White Fang to become a huntress, and that the only thing keeping her identity under wraps is this bow that she wears. Clearly, this girl must have been watching too much Hannah Montana, because she doesn't seem to realize that putting something on your head doesn't change your face, or voice, or anything like that. Or I guess it does, because I guess no one's noticed her. Anyways, Team RWBY's looking for Blake in town, but then Penny shows up to help. And also the wind changes direction in the same scene. Man, this checklist is just filling up. Anyways, Blake and Sun then discuss the recent White Fang robberies and plan to track them down. Meanwhile, Yang and Weiss are searching around town for Blake, and Weiss says this.
The innocent never run, Yang.
Well, you all must be criminals then. Later that night, Blake and Sun find the White Fang and Roman Torchwick attempting to rob a shipping container dock.
So he's a furry too.
This isn't right. The White Fang would never work with a human, especially not one like that.
How do you know he's a human? Like, maybe he's hiding like you.
Yeah. He secretly has elephant ears. He's gonna blow you away with them.
Yeah. Blake steps in an attempt to reason with the White Fang members, but Roman claims that they're in cahoots. A fight then breaks out, and Sun steps in with his gun chucks. Also, Torchwick must have armor plating underneath that vest, because this strike absolutely should have killed him. And this shot from Torchwick should have absolutely killed RWBY. Hey, did you know that the writers of this show were inspired by Sword Art Online? I guess that explains the plot armor on display.
She's gonna use her ginger powers.
Don't worry, RWBY.
I'm ginger.
Hey, remember that comment you said about her being a robot? There you go. So she literally doesn't have a soul.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, Penny enters the fray and brings her body count immediately higher than everyone else in the show. Like, Christ, she fucking massacred some of these people.
How is she doing that?
Strings, duh. I've watched enough paranormal videos to know that. Anyways, Roman ends his role in the season the same way he started. By fucking off. Afterwards, Weiss and Blake, I think, make up, though Weiss acts really passive-aggressive.
Do you have any idea of how long we've been searching for you? 12 hours. That means I've had 12 hours to think about this. And in that 12 hours, I've decided... I don't care.
You don't care?
You said you're not one of them anymore, right?
No, I haven't been since I was younger.
I don't know, I guess that's just the tsundere in her. And it's with this resolution and a message to Ozpin from Ruby's uncle that she mentioned in the first episode that Volume 1 comes to a close. But not before a little teaser for what's to come in the after-credits scene, where we see the lady from the first episode and two of her teammates who are just 2D PNGs sliding into frame. Honestly, screw all that stuff with humans and faunuses. I want to know the relationship between 3D people and 2D people. Oh, and they also misspelt Sun Wukong's name in the credits, so that's pretty funny. But yeah, overall, this was a fine little conclusion. It felt really anticlimactic, but it was fine, I guess, at concluding the volume and adding some new information about Blake and the White Fang. 6 out of 10. So yeah, that was Volume 1. The biggest issue a lot of people, myself included, have is that it really doesn't have a plot, and that it more so just feels like build-up, which on its own could be fine. There's lots of stories that act as build-up to bigger ones that are actually good, and it's clear this volume is meant to set up these characters and their traits above all else. Now, does it do a good job at that? Let's start with Team RWBY. I think the one who gets the most development and is explored the most in this volume is Weiss, who started out as a spoiled bitch but gradually shows signs of being a more reasonable person over the course of the volume. RWBY gets a modicum of character exploration through this volume. Blake doesn't really do or is developed all that much until the very end and like one scene near the beginning. And I was really surprised going back to this first volume by how little Yang does anything really, other than just occasionally being nice. With Team Juniper, John is really the only one fleshed out, which would be fine if his arc wasn't stupid and also didn't take up a large chunk of the volume. But for the first go-around, I don't think they did a terrible job. The animation is still pretty rough, as I mentioned earlier, but it has its charm, I guess. And again, I've seen worse. The series' best attributes so far are easily its music and its fight scenes. The energy and adrenaline featured in both are incredibly palpable, and it only gets better from here, kinda, not really. So overall, Volume 1 is not really that great, or even that good, mostly, but as an introduction to the series, it does a reasonable job at just being a basic introduction. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. Here are my rankings of each of the episodes. So, yeah, those were my thoughts on Volume 1. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to make more RWBY videos in the future. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and subscribe. And all my socials are in the description. And, yeah, that's about it. See you later. Yes! I made an entire video on RWBY and I didn't mention how big Yang and Pierre's tits are. I knew I could be original. Wait, shit, is this thing on? Alright, that was Volume 1. So, what did you think of Volume 1?
I mean,
honest thoughts.
It was pretty good. I mean, the quality is kind of
yeah. The animation quality definitely isn't the best this first time around. I mean, this series was made on a pretty low budget for a web series, so
the story's all right. I mean, I thought we could have gotten the plot.
Yeah, the biggest problem with Volume 1 is that it really doesn't have that much of a plot. Really, I mean, the closest thing you get is is Torchwick's whole thing, but like it doesn't even he starts off the series failing to get at dust. And then he ends the series with failing to get dust. Yeah. Like, I mean, there's no real sense of progression, really.
I wasn't expecting an exposition dump, but maybe instead of like an introduction, the intro being like, here's magic and how cool it is, and whatever it was. I feel like it should have been like a more of like a minor little history lesson. Like, there was this war, and then there's the White Fang, or what was it called? What was it called?
White Fang.
Yeah, White Fang. I mean, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Character designs weren't that bad. I mean, the monsters were really cool, and that's kind of what I'm a sucker for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this volume would pretty much serve to more so just introduce the characters and what they're like above all else. Which I mean, I think they did a decent job at. I think mostly. I'm surprised with how little Yang actually does in this first volume.
Yeah, I just want to comment on that. Yang doesn't really have much involvement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the one who like actually gets the most like any sort like the most development throughout this first volume is like Weiss, who like who goes from being like the spoiled brat to like being a moderately more.
They went through 2 arcs. They weren't racist anymore, and they weren't as egotistical.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah. I don't know
Not that bad.
And I don't know how to end this. So okay.